Captain Elias Ward had seen the cold side of the universe. He had walked on dead moons, drifted through broken stations and stared into the black emptiness where light itself seemed afraid to exist. He was a man who believed in reason, not miracles. Orders, not destiny, but that night, destiny came to him. It began as a whisper through the static of his ship's communication array. The signal was weak, almost broken, like a voice lost between galaxies. He leaned forward, adjusting the frequency, and what he heard made his heart stop for a moment. "Please, enter my world, human." The words were soft, trembling, and filled with something he never expected from an alien voice: emotion. It wasn't a command nor a threat. It sounded like a plea. Elias froze, staring at the monitor as the message repeated again and again. His ship was alone in deep space, thousands of light years away from any human colony. He checked the coordinates. The signal came from the Orion Belt, from a long-dead system once ruled by the Zinnereth Empire. The Zinnereth, a name spoken in old stories and fearful whispers. They were said to be gods of light and energy, a civilization that once ruled half the galaxy. And then, one day, they vanished. No one ever knew why. And now, one of them, maybe the last, was calling him. Elias leaned back in his chair, staring at the dark window of space. Stars flickered faintly in the distance, silent witnesses to a dying universe. He didn't know why, but her voice had touched something deep inside him, something he had buried long ago. He had lost many things during his years as a captain. His home, his family, his sense of belonging. The silence of space had become his only companion. But now, in that soft, trembling voice, he felt something alive again. Hope. He whispered to himself, "Who are you?" The computer translated the signal again, clearer this time. "I am the last queen of Zinnereth. My world is fading. My heart is alone, please. Enter my world." Her voice shook slightly on the last words, like someone fighting tears. Could aliens even cry? Elias didn't know. But he could feel her sorrow like it was his own. He opened the ship's navigation system. The coordinates were unstable, hidden inside a nebula thick with radiation storms. Any sane pilot would have ignored the message and continued their route. But Elias was not sure he was sane anymore. Maybe it was loneliness. Maybe it was curiosity. Or maybe it was that strange pull that humans have, the urge to step into the unknown no matter the danger. He smiled faintly and said to no one, "All right, Your Majesty. Let's see your world." The engines roared softly as his ship changed course. Stars blurred into lines of light as he entered faster than light travel. The journey took days, then weeks, and during those silent hours he listened to her voice again and again. Every time it felt less like an alien call and more like a heartbeat. Sometimes he even spoke back. He would whisper stories about Earth, about oceans and blue skies, about laughter and rain. He didn't know if she could hear him, but something in his chest told him she could. Then one day the ship broke through the edge of the nebula. Before him spread a planet wrapped in glowing mist, silver clouds swirling with faint violet light. The sensors detected no life, no energy, only silence. And yet the moment he stepped closer, the voice returned, stronger, clearer, almost like it was right beside him. "You came," he froze. The words echoed softly inside the cockpit, and for the first time Elias felt something more than curiosity. He felt connection. He turned on the descent engines and guided the ship down through the mist. As he entered the atmosphere, lightning danced across the clouds, lighting up shapes of broken towers and ancient ruins. The air shimmered with quiet sadness, as if the planet itself remembered what it had lost. Elias's heart beat faster. He didn't understand why, but he could feel eyes watching him. Not in fear, but in longing. And when his ship finally landed, the air outside glowed faintly with warmth, not deadly, not hostile, but alive. He took a slow breath, reached for his helmet and whispered softly, "All right, I'm here." He stepped out into the mist, and somewhere in the distance, hidden between the ruins and the dying light of a forgotten empire, the last queen of Zinnereth smiled through her tears. "Welcome to my world, human." The first thing Elias felt when he stepped out of his ship was warmth. Not the burning heat of a dying sun, but a gentle, living warmth, like sunlight breaking through clouds after endless rain. The air shimmered faintly around him, filled with tiny golden lights that moved like dust but glowed as if alive. He looked around. The ground beneath his boots pulsed with faint blue veins of light, spreading across the cracked surface like a living heartbeat. Mountains shimmered in the distance, made of crystal and stone, their edges glowing faintly in the mist. It was beautiful and heartbreaking. Everywhere he looked, there were ruins, broken towers, shattered bridges, and giant statues half buried in the soil. This world must have once been full of life and glory. Now it was a graveyard that refused to die. He took a slow step forward, scanning the horizon. "Is anyone here?" he called out. For a moment there was only silence. Then a voice answered, soft, melodic, and filled with something beyond sadness. "You came..." Elias froze. The voice wasn't coming from his comm device. It was everywhere, in the air, in the light, inside his chest. He turned slowly, and there she was, the Queen. She stood a few steps away, tall and graceful, her form glowing softly in the mist. Her skin shimmered like liquid silver, and faint streams of blue light ran beneath it like veins of energy. Her eyes, deep and endless, seemed to hold entire galaxies within them. Elias couldn't move. For a moment he forgot to breathe. She was unlike anything he had ever seen. Not human, not mechanical, not even something he could compare. And yet her expression, it was so human. She smiled faintly, though her eyes were full of sorrow. "You are human," the first to answer, and the last who still dares to come. Her voice was soft like music played from far away. Elias lowered his weapon and stepped closer, trying to understand what he was seeing. "You're the one who sent the message?" She nodded gently. "Yes, I called across the stars, hoping someone would hear. My people are gone. My world is dying. But I could still feel something. A spark among the humans. You were close enough to answer." Elias took another step forward, his heart beating fast. "Why me? There are better people out there. Scientists, diplomats, explorers. I'm just a soldier." The Queen looked at him for a long moment. "Because soldiers understand laws, and because your heart still remembers compassion." Her words hit something deep inside him. He didn't reply. He just stood there staring into those glowing eyes that seemed to see straight into his soul. After a long silence, she turned and began walking into the mist. "Come," she said softly. "You must see what remains of my world." Elias followed her. The ground beneath them glowed with every step, as if the planet itself recognized her. As they walked, he saw strange, beautiful things. Broken crystal trees that hummed faintly, rivers of silver light that no longer flowed, and structures that seemed half alive, still breathing faintly in the stillness. "It was all alive once," she whispered. "Our world was not built. It was grown. Every city, every tower, every song, it lived and listened. But when our sun turned against us, we tried to fight nature itself. We won the war, and lost our souls." Elias glanced at her, noticing how her light flickered when she spoke of the past. She looked fragile, not like a ruler, but like someone holding on to the last thread of existence. He wanted to say something comforting, but words felt small here. So he simply said, "You're not alone now." The Queen stopped walking. Her eyes widened slightly, as if the idea was something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in a long, long time. Slowly she turned to him. "Do you mean that, human?" He nodded quietly. "Yes, I'm here, and I'll help you if I can." For the first time her expression softened completely. A single tear of light rolled down her cheek and hit the ground, glowing like a small star before fading away. "Then you are already helping," she said in a whisper, "because you listened." They stood there for a while, two beings from different worlds, surrounded by silence and ghosts of a dead civilization. Above them the sky pulsed faintly with violet light, as if the planet itself had heard those words and taken a small breath of relief. The Queen looked up and said softly, "Come with me, Elias Ward. There is something I must show you, something only a human heart can understand." And as they disappeared into the glowing mist together, Elias couldn't shake the feeling that he was walking not just through a world, but through someone's memory. Elias followed the Queen through the mist, his boots touching the glowing ground that pulsed faintly with light. The further they walked, the quieter everything became. Even the wind seemed to fade, replaced by a deep silence that carried the weight of centuries. They entered what once must have been a great city. Tall crystal towers stretched into the fog, their edges broken and dark. Fragments of floating platforms drifted above them, cracked and silent. Statues stood everywhere, not of stone or metal, but of light frozen in place as if time itself had stopped to mourn. Elias looked around in awe and sorrow. "What happened here?" he asked softly. The queen's eyes dimmed as she gazed at the ruins. "This was the heart of Zinnereth," she said. "Our capital, the city of souls. Every building, every song, every crystal, all were connected to our life force. We lived in harmony with our world. We did not build with hands. We shaped with thought." She paused, her voice trembling slightly. "But when the sun began to die, we turned against our own creation. We tried to command the stars to obey us. We stole power from the universe itself, and it cursed us for our arrogance." As she spoke, they passed by a statue of two figures locked in an embrace, their faces serene but their bodies cracked with dark lines of energy. Elias stopped and touched one of the figures. The surface was cold, smooth, and yet faintly alive. "Are these your people?" he asked. The queen nodded slowly. "Yes. When the core of our world began to collapse, the energy turned against us. It froze our essence, trapping our souls in crystal form. These statues are not art, human. They are memories. My people's final moments." Her voice broke slightly on the last words. Elias turned toward her and saw tears of light forming in her eyes, rolling down her cheeks like drops of liquid stars. He didn't know what to say. He had seen cities burn, planets fall, and friends die, but this was different. This wasn't just destruction. It was grief that refused to fade, grief that had become part of the land itself. They continued walking until they reached a vast open space. In the center stood a broken spire, still glowing faintly with blue energy. The air around it shimmered with strange ripples like a mirage. "This was our palace," the queen said quietly. "It once sang with voices of joy. Now it only whispers of what we lost." Elias stepped closer. The spire was cracked down the middle, but inside he could see veins of light still alive, pulsing slowly, refusing to die. "There's still energy here," he said. The queen nodded. "It is the heart of my world. What remains of it?" She placed her hand on the surface of the spire, and the air shimmered around her fingers. The light grew stronger, responding to her touch. For a moment, Elias saw something. Images flashing in the air like memories. A world filled with laughter and light. Children made of energy playing among floating gardens. Creatures soaring through golden skies. Then suddenly fire. Explosions of light. Screams that echoed without sound. He gasped and stepped back, his heart racing. The visions faded. The queen turned to him, her face filled with sorrow. "You see now, this world remembers everything. It remembers our joy and our mistakes." Elias looked around at the ruins again. "And you've been here alone all this time?" She lowered her head. "For centuries. I have kept the core alive, though it grows weaker each day. I cannot leave. My life is tied to this world's heart. When it fades, I fade with it." Something in her tone broke him. A being so powerful, so ancient, and yet so heartbreakingly alone. He stepped closer, his voice gentle. "Why call for a human? Why me?" She looked up, and for a moment her eyes glowed brighter. "Because humans are different. You are fragile, short-lived, yet your spirits burn brighter than stars. I have watched your kind from afar. You keep fighting even when there is no hope." I wanted to understand that, to feel that before I disappear. Elias stood silent, her words sinking deep into his chest. He didn't feel like a hero or a symbol of humanity. But in that moment he wanted to be something for her, even if it was just someone who listened. He finally said softly, "You don't have to fade alone." The queen stared at him for a long moment, her light flickering gently. Then she whispered, "Perhaps. There is still a way, but it will cost more than you can imagine." Before he could ask what she meant, the ground beneath them trembled. A wave of faint blue energy rippled through the ruins, and the queen looked toward the horizon with worry in her eyes. "The core is weakening faster than I thought," she said. "Come, human. There is something you must see." And as the light of the dying world pulsed around them, Elias followed her deeper into the heart of Zinnereth, unaware that her next words would change his destiny forever. The queen led Elias through the broken city until they reached a great canyon of light. Beneath them stretched a lake that wasn't made of water but of glowing energy, a vast pool of living light that shimmered like liquid stars. The air above it hummed with a deep sound, soft but powerful, as if the world itself was breathing. Elias stopped at the edge, staring in awe. "What is this?" he whispered. The queen stood beside him, her silver hair drifting in the energy wind. "This is the core," she said softly. "It is the memory of my people. Everything we were, our thoughts, our dreams, our love, it all flows here. This is the last heartbeat of Zinnereth." He looked again at the glowing lake. It was beautiful, but he could sense its pain. The light flickered weakly like a candle about to die. Faint whispers echoed from the depths, voices of thousands speaking in sorrow. Elias felt a chill run down his spine. "It's alive," the queen nodded. "Yes, it remembers us. But it is dying. The core can no longer hold its shape. When it collapses, all that we were will vanish forever. Every memory, every soul, even me." Her voice cracked slightly at the end. Elias turned toward her, seeing the truth in her trembling light. "There must be a way to fix it," he said quickly. "You just need energy, right? Maybe I can bring—" "No," she interrupted softly. "Power cannot save us. What we lost was not energy. It was meaning." She looked at him with those deep, galaxy-filled eyes, and her words carried a strange, sad calm. "We became gods, Elias. We mastered creation and destruction. We learned how to live forever. But we forgot why we should." She took a slow breath, her body glowing faintly. "You humans, you are different. You still feel joy in small things. You still fight even when you know you might lose. You carry something my people lost long ago, the will to hope." Elias listened quietly, feeling her pain in every word. He had seen humans at their worst, war, greed, hatred, but also at their best, kindness, courage, and love. And now, standing here on a dying alien world, he understood how rare and beautiful that simple human spark really was. The queen turned to him slowly. Her light dimmed slightly and her voice became softer, almost like a whisper of the wind. "That is why I called you. I want you to give my world a heart again." Elias frowned. "What do you mean?" She stepped closer, her eyes shining. "The core is fading because it has no will to live. If a soul strong enough, a heart full of human fire, joins it, the core might awaken again. It will not just remember us. It will feel again." He stared at her in shock. "You mean someone has to go into it?" She nodded. "Yes, and that someone is me." Her face softened. "I cannot force you, but the core has already chosen you. It felt your presence the moment you arrived. You are not like the others who ignored my call. You listened." Elias stepped back, shaking his head slightly. "If I enter that thing, I'll die, won't I?" The queen lowered her gaze. "Your body will fade, but your essence will remain. You will not be gone, Elias. You will become part of something greater. You will give my world a chance to live again." For a long moment, neither spoke. Only the soft hum of the core filled the silence. Elias looked down at the glowing lake. It was beautiful yet terrifying. A living ocean of souls waiting for one last spark. He felt fear rising inside him, but also something else. Compassion. He looked back at the queen. She was watching him with quiet sadness, her hands clasped together as if in prayer. "You've been alone for so long," he said softly. "And yet you still have hope." She smiled weakly. "Because I heard your voice, human, and it reminded me what hope sounds like." Elias's chest tightened. He had never thought of himself as a savior. He was just a man who had lost his way among the stars, but now an entire world's fate rested in his choice. Finally he asked, "If I do this, what happens to you?" She took a step closer, her light flickering gently. "If the core awakens, I will live again, not as a queen, but as part of the world itself. My body will fade, but my heart will stay with you, forever." He looked into her eyes and saw no manipulation, no deception, only truth and sorrow. And for the first time, Elias Ward didn't feel like a visitor in her world. He felt like he belonged here. The queen extended her glowing hand toward him. Her voice was steady now, filled with ancient grace and fragile hope. "Please, human, enter my world." Elias looked at her hand for a long moment, his heart pounding. Then slowly he reached out and took it, and as their fingers touched, the core below them flared with light, bright, alive, and waiting. Elias sat alone near the edge of the glowing core, the light gently washing over his face. The queen had left him for a while, giving him time to think. The silence around him was deep, not empty, but heavy, as if the whole world was holding its breath, waiting for his answer. He stared into the shimmering lake of light. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. He could see shapes moving within it, flashes of faces, memories, fragments of laughter and pain. The souls of her people, they were all there waiting for something to bring them peace. He took a slow breath and whispered, "Why me?" He wasn't a hero. He wasn't special. He was just a man who had survived too many battles, lost too many friends, and spent too many nights staring at the stars, wondering what all of it meant. Maybe that's why she had chosen him. Because he understood loss. Because he knew what it meant to keep moving, even when everything inside you was broken. Elias leaned back against a cracked pillar and looked up at the strange sky. It shimmered faintly with violet clouds and silver storms like the planet itself was alive. Somewhere far away, thunder rolled softly, but the sound was calm, almost like a heartbeat. He remembered Earth, the smell of rain, the sound of ocean waves hitting the shore, the laughter of people in crowded streets. He remembered the faces of those he had loved and lost, and for the first time in years he felt something rise inside him, a deep ache but also warmth. That warmth. It felt human. He smiled faintly. "So that's what you want from me," he murmured. "Not power. Not strength, just a little bit of heart." Behind him the air shimmered. The queen appeared quietly, her light softer than before. She seemed tired, almost fragile, but her eyes still held that same endless beauty. "You are thinking about home," she said gently. Elias nodded. "Yes, it's strange. I've spent half my life running from it, but now I can't stop seeing it." She stepped closer, her voice tender. "Home is not only a place, human. It is the people we carry inside us. You have carried your world with you, and now you can share it with mine." He looked at her. There was no demand in her voice, only trust. That simple trust broke something inside him. No one had ever looked at him like that. Not as a weapon, not as a soldier, but as a soul. He stood up slowly, his eyes still locked on hers. "If I do this," he said quietly, "there's no going back, is there?" The queen shook her head. "Your body will fade. Your essence will live within the core. You will see what I see, feel what I feel. You will become the bridge between your kind and mine. Two hearts, one world." Elias looked down at his hands, scarred, rough, human. He had used them to fight, to destroy, to survive. But maybe now, they could be used to save. "And if I refuse?" he asked softly. The queen's light flickered, her tone filled with sadness. "Then my world dies and I fade into the dark. You will leave and in time you will forget me, but I will remember your kindness until my last breath." Her words struck deep. Elias felt his throat tighten. He didn't know if this was love or something beyond it. A bond that had formed between two souls from different stars. But he knew one thing. He couldn't walk away. He took a deep breath. "All my life I've followed orders," he said quietly. "But this time, I want to choose." He looked at the glowing core again, the lake of light that pulsed like a giant heart. He felt it calling him, not in words, but in feeling. It was warm, alive, hopeful. It was waiting. Elias turned back to the queen. She stood still, her hands folded close to her chest, her light trembling like candle flame. He smiled softly. "All right," he said. "I'll enter your world." For a moment, time seemed to stop. The queen's eyes widened slightly, filled with both sorrow and joy. The light around her brightened, and she stepped closer until they were only inches apart. "You will not be forgotten, Elias Ward," she whispered. "Your name will live in every breath of this world." He chuckled weakly. "Just make sure it's a peaceful world." The queen reached out and touched his face. Her hand was warm, not cold. It felt like sunlight after a long winter. "Thank you," she said softly. "You have given me more than you know." And for the first time since he had arrived, Elias felt peace. No fear, no doubt, only calm. He had found his purpose not in war, but in mercy. He took her hand, their fingers intertwining, light meeting flesh. Together they turned toward the core. The queen whispered, "Then come, human. Let us bring life once more." Elias nodded. "Let's do it." And with that, they stepped toward the glowing heart of the world. Two souls walking side by side, one human and one alien, ready to change the fate of an entire world. The core pulsed brighter as Elias and the queen stood before it. The ground beneath them trembled softly. not from danger but from life itself awakening. A low hum filled the air. A song older than stars, something alive and endless. Elias could feel it calling to him, not through sound, but through the rhythm of his own heartbeat. Each pulse matched the glow of the core, as if his heart and the planet's heart were trying to beat together. The Queen looked at him quietly, her eyes filled with light. "When we begin," she whispered, "there will be pain. You will feel everything, every loss, every memory, every cry of my people. Do you still wish to continue?" Elias took a slow breath. His chest felt tight, his throat dry. But when he looked at her, he saw not a ruler or an alien. He saw someone desperate to save what little remained of her world. Someone willing to give everything for it. He nodded once. "Let's finish this." The Queen raised her hand. The core responded instantly. The lake of light rose upward, forming tendrils of glowing mist that swirled around them both. The air became heavy, almost sacred. The moment her fingers touched his chest, Elias gasped. It was as if a door had opened inside him. Heat rushed through his veins, and suddenly he could see things, flashes of memories that weren't his. He saw her world before the fall, golden towers rising into pink skies, rivers of silver light, children laughing in crystal courtyards. He saw the Queen as she once was, young, proud, surrounded by her people. Then everything changed. The skies burned red. The invaders came. Fire tore through the cities, screams filled the air, and the Queen stood helpless as her world fell apart. Elias felt every emotion as if it were his own. The grief, the guilt, the loneliness. It crushed him, but he didn't pull away. He reached out instead, his hands trembling, and touched her face. "You don't have to carry it alone," he whispered. The Queen's eyes shimmered. "Then carry it with me," the core flared. The light engulfed them completely. Elias cried out, not from pain but from the intensity of what he felt. His body began to fade, his outline breaking into particles of golden dust. He could feel his consciousness expanding, stretching beyond flesh and bone. He felt her voice, her thoughts, her heart. And through her he felt everything else. The soil, the wind, the hidden seeds buried deep underground waiting for warmth. He could hear the world breathing again. The Queen's light grew brighter. Her form shimmered like a star, and within her Elias could feel himself becoming something new. Not gone, not erased, just transformed. "Elias," her voice echoed softly, "what do you see?" He smiled faintly, though his face was already fading. "I see life," he whispered. "It's coming back." Around them, the core began to spread. Streams of light flowed outward like rivers crawling across the barren ground. Everywhere it touched, green began to bloom, glowing vines, crystal flowers, trees with leaves that shimmered like mirrors. The dead world was waking. But even as beauty returned, Elias could feel himself slipping further away from what he once was. His voice grew softer in her mind. "Don't let them forget who they were," he said. "Don't let them lose their hope again." "I won't," she whispered. "And don't forget me." There was a pause, a moment of pure silence, and then her voice broke gently. "Never, my human. You are part of me now." The core blazed one final time. A shockwave of light rippled across the horizon, pushing away the darkness that had consumed the land for centuries. The air filled with warmth and new sound, the gentle hum of life reborn. The Queen stood in the center of the core, her form trembling but radiant. The glow around her faded slowly until she looked almost human, softer, warmer, alive. Inside her chest, a faint golden light pulsed steadily, a second heart beating in harmony with her own. She touched it gently and closed her eyes. "He's still here," she whispered. "My bridge between two worlds." Above, the skies cleared. The endless storms faded into calm twilight. For the first time in centuries, stars shone over her planet again. The Queen lifted her gaze and smiled softly through her tears. "Rest now, Elias," she murmured. "Your world is safe, and so is mine." As the wind carried her words into the distance, flowers continued to bloom across the land, glowing with gentle gold, the color of human warmth. And deep within the heart of the planet, the core pulsed quietly, echoing a name that would never be forgotten: Elias Ward, the human who entered her world. Years passed. The once ruined planet was no longer silent. Where there had been ashes now stood forests of silver-blue trees. Rivers flowed again, glowing softly beneath the pale light of twin moons. Creatures returned to roam the plains, and songs of life filled the air once more. The queen walked among her people, what remained of them. They had begun to rebuild, not with stone or metal, but with harmony. The new cities rose like living art, shaped from crystal roots and singing vines growing under her touch. But even in peace, her heart carried a quiet ache. Every sunrise reminded her of him, Elias, the human who had stepped into her dying world when no one else would. The man who had given up his life so her people could breathe again. Sometimes, when the night grew still, she would stand by the core, the glowing heart of her world, and close her eyes. If she listened closely, she could hear him there, like a whisper inside the light. "You kept your promise," his voice would murmur softly in her thoughts. "Your world is alive again." And every time she heard it, her chest would tighten with emotion. She would smile even as tears filled her eyes. "Yes," she would whisper back, "but it's alive because of you." One evening she walked alone to the highest hill overlooking the reborn cities. The air smelled of flowers and rain. The stars above shimmered like diamonds scattered across endless darkness. She gazed upward, speaking quietly to the sky. "Do your people ever look at the stars and think of us, Elias? Do they feel you out there?" There was no answer, but a warm breeze passed over her face, gentle and kind. The kind of warmth that felt human. It made her laugh softly through her tears. "You always find a way to answer me," she said. The queen sat down on the grass. It glowed faintly beneath her touch, responding to her presence. She remembered the way Elias used to look at the core, full of awe and sadness. He never saw himself as special, yet he had carried the heart of two worlds. She placed her hand on her chest over the faint golden light that still pulsed within her, the gift he had left behind. It beat in perfect rhythm with her own heart. "You are not gone," she whispered. "You live here, through me." And perhaps it was true, because sometimes when she walked among her people, she could feel him guiding her, in the way she spoke, in the kindness she showed, in the hope that never seemed to fade. When she looked into the faces of children born under the new light, she often saw the same spark she had seen in his eyes, that strange mix of courage and compassion that only humans seem to have. Maybe that was what he had truly given her world, not just life, but humanity. One night, as the moons hung low and the wind whispered softly, the queen returned to the core. It glowed gently, calmer now, a steady golden light instead of the wild storm it once was. She stepped close, the surface rippling like a mirror. Her reflection appeared, but there was another shape beside it, faint, shimmering, familiar. It was Elias. Not a ghost, not a dream, just a quiet presence made of light and memory. "You've changed everything," he said softly. She smiled through trembling lips. "We changed everything. Do you miss Earth?" he asked gently. She shook her head. "No, because I see it every day, and in the sky and the laughter of the children and the warmth of this world. You brought Earth here, Elias." He smiled faintly, his form flickering like a candle flame. "And you gave me a place to belong." She reached out, her hand passing through his light. For a heartbeat, it felt real, on a warm, alive. "I wish you could stay," she whispered. "I never left," he replied. Then the image faded into the core, leaving behind a faint trail of golden sparks that drifted into the air. The queen stood there for a long time, her heart filled with quiet peace. She turned toward the horizon where dawn was breaking, soft pink light spreading across the reborn land. A new world. A new beginning. "You asked me to enter your world," Elias's voice echoed faintly in her heart. "But in the end you entered mine." She smiled as the first rays of light touched her face. "Then we finally found each other," she whispered. The world around her shimmered, alive and eternal. The core pulsed once more, as if it too was breathing his name. And somewhere beyond the stars, the soul of a human watched quietly and proud, peaceful, and forever part of the world he had saved. Elias Ward, the human who entered her world and never truly left.